In April of 2023, during spring break, I was in my junior year of college. My friends and I, 7 of us in total, decided to rent a cabin in the woods of Oregon for a few days to escape the pressures of school. We wanted a break from our phones, a chance to unwind with some drinks, loud music, and create memories we'd laugh about later. There were 4 guys, Jake, Ryan, Leo, and me, and 3 girls, Mia, Tessa, and Claire. We had been close friends since freshman year. The cabin we chose was surprisingly inexpensive for its size: 2 stories, a wraparound deck, and 2 bathrooms, all situated on private land near a secluded lake. It was deep in the woods, far from any towns, surrounded by towering pines. The owner had a thick, gravelly voice when we spoke on the phone. He warned us, just don't wander too deep into the woods. Old stuff back there, wells, busted fences, snakes. You don't want to get lost. We chuckled, thinking he was just trying to add some eerie charm to our getaway. But when we arrived, the atmosphere shifted. The drive felt endless, with our GPS failing about an hour from the cabin. The final stretch was a narrow dirt road, flanked by dense trees. When we finally glimpsed the cabin, we fell silent. It looked nothing like the pictures, aged and weathered, with dusty windows and peeling paint. A faint smell of decay hung in the air, but we brushed it off and joked that it just added character. We unloaded our bags, claimed our rooms, and began drinking. By 8:00 p.m., we were grilling outside, laughing and blasting music from a portable speaker. But as night fell, the mood shifted. The woods grew darker, more than just nighttime dark, but an impenetrable blackness that felt oppressive. The porch lights did little to cut through the gloom, and silence enveloped us like a thick blanket. Around 2:00 a.m., I drifted off to sleep in my room on the ground floor, right next to the kitchen. I woke abruptly at 3:30 a.m., wide awake for no reason. As I lay there, I heard its soft tapping. At first, I thought it was the heater, but then it came again, steady and rhythmic. It sounded like fingers rapping against the glass. I turned and froze. There was a figure outside my window, pressed against the glass. A man with pale skin and unkempt hair, standing there with his mouth slightly open, breathing heavily. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and he just stared, tapping softly, as if he were playing a game. My heart raced. I whispered for Jake, who was sleeping on the couch. "Jake, wake up," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper. He stirred, groggy, and I pointed. When he turned, the man was gone. We jumped up, the girls were terrified, and Leo suggested it was just a local playing a prank. But I knew better. We barricaded ourselves, pushing the couch against the large living room window, taking turns watching for the rest of the night. Nothing else happened, but we didn't sleep well. The next morning, we ventured outside and found bare human footprints circling the cabin footprints that stopped at every window, even the small one above the upstairs shower. We should have left then, but our stubbornness kept us there. Night 2 began like the first, but the energy felt different. Everyone was on edge, glancing at the woods. Mia didn't drink, and Ryan kept his pocket knife close. When we finally retreated inside, we locked every door and window. At around 4 a.m., Jake went to the kitchen for water. Suddenly, he called my name from the hallway. I got up and saw him pointing into the kitchen. There was someone in there, the same man from before, but now he was inside. Naked, his back covered in deep, raw scratches. He swayed back and forth in front of the fridge, staring at it as if he didn't know what it was. Jake backed away slowly, and we gathered silently in the hallway, armed with whatever we could find: my pocket knife, Mia with a frying pan, and Ryan wielding a broken chair leg. We flicked on the kitchen light, but the man had vanished. The back door stood wide open, not broken, just ajar. 20 minutes later, we fled. No one argued. We packed only essentials, wallets, keys, and phones and drove through the woods until we finally got a signal to call the sheriff. When we met the deputy at a diner off the highway, he seemed unfazed. "Yeah, we've had trouble with folks living in those woods," he said. "Not always right in the head." We tried explaining it wasn't just some homeless person. This man had watched us, returned 2 nights in a row, and somehow entered our cabin. The deputy nodded, as if he had heard it all before. When we mentioned the owner, his expression changed, and he seemed to know more than he let on. A few days later, the cabin listing was completely removed from every site. We never got answers, and our deposit was gone without a trace. But I still see that man's face sometimes, staring at me through the window of my mind. We don't talk about that trip anymore, but as far as I know, none of us have returned to Oregon since.
My name is Lily. I am a senior in high school, living in a small town in Northern California. It's the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and kids ride their bikes down the street without fear. At least, that's what I thought until last weekend changed everything. I was asked to take care of my neighbor's dog, a big, shaggy German Shepherd named Max. The Johnsons were going away for the weekend. And although I didn't need the extra cash, I liked Max. He was a good dog, protective but friendly. Their house was just a few doors down, surrounded by thick oak trees that swayed gently in the breeze, making everything feel serene. The Johnsons left Friday morning, and I settled into their home that afternoon. Max was thrilled to see me, wagging his tail and bringing me his favorite ball. I fed him, took him for a short walk, and then relaxed on the couch, watching some mindless TV. Everything felt normal, peaceful even. Saturday dawned cold and gray, the kind of day that makes you want to stay in bed. The wind howled through the trees and the clouds hung low, casting eerie shadows on the ground. I figured I'd spend the day inside. So after dinner, I decided to take a hot shower. I locked the doors out of habit and turned on some music to drown out the silence. As the hot water cascaded over me, I lost track of time, enjoying the steam. I thought I heard a faint sound, like a tapping noise, but brushed it off. Maybe it was just the plumbing. I turned off the water and stepped out, wrapping a towel around myself, feeling a chill creep up my spine. When I glanced at my phone on the sink, my heart dropped. There were notifications from the security app, 3 alerts. I opened the first clip and my stomach twisted. A man was standing at the front door. He looked scruffy, with unkempt hair and a dark jacket. He wasn't ringing the bell or knocking. He just stood there, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The next clip showed him trying the door handle. I gasped and held my breath, frozen. The door didn't open, of course. I'd locked it. He stepped back, glancing around nervously before disappearing from view. My hands were shaking now. I opened the backyard camera, and there he was again, moving slowly along the side of the house, peering through the windows. My heart raced as I realized I was alone in the house with him. Max had been barking, but his growls turned into frantic barks as if sensing the danger. I quickly texted 911, fingers trembling as I typed. "There's a man trying to break into my neighbor's house. I'm dog sitting, and I'm upstairs in the bathroom." I pressed send, panic coursing through me. Time stretched painfully. I switched between camera feeds, praying for the flashing lights of police cars, but all I could hear was Max's barking. I tossed the towel aside and changed into my jeans and a t-shirt, more prepared for what might come next. Suddenly, I heard a thud from downstairs, a loud noise that sent chills down my spine. Should I hide? Should I call out for help? Then, I saw them red and blue flashing lights illuminating the darkness outside. My heart leaped. I could hear shouting, but it was muffled through the walls. Max's barking intensified, and I could have sworn I heard the sound of a scuffle. "Sheriff's Department, come out with your hands up," a voice boomed. I waited, terrified, until they finally knocked on the bathroom door. "Lily, are you all right?" one of the officers called. I opened the door slowly, and relief flooded over me when I saw their uniforms. I hurried downstairs, breathless, and explained everything that had happened, how I saw the man on the camera trying to break in. The officers exchanged glances, but when they searched the house, they found nothing. They checked every room, every closet, and even the backyard. My heart sank as they returned to me, shaking their heads. "We don't see anyone here," one officer said. "You might have scared him off." Just as they prepared to leave, Max's barking erupted again, louder and more frantic than before. He stood in front of the locked garage door, fixated on something inside. "What's wrong with him?" one of the officers asked, raising an eyebrow. "I don't know." "He's never barked like this before," I replied, my heart racing again. The officers exchanged uncertain looks before one said, "Let's check it out." They approached the garage cautiously, and I followed, my breath hitching in my throat. When they reached the door, they carefully opened it. The darkness inside was palpable, and they switched on their flashlights. As the beam sliced through the blackness, Max lunged forward, barking furiously toward the far corner, where a large closet stood, half in shadow. "Stay back," one officer instructed me as they moved toward the closet. With a swift motion, they flung the closet door open, and I gasped. There he was, the man from the footage, hiding inside, his eyes wide with panic. "Get on the ground," the officer shouted. They forced him down, pinning him to the floor. He struggled, but it was futile. They cuffed him, and I stood frozen, shock washing over me as I realized he was a wanted criminal with a long track record of break-ins. "Looks like we caught ourselves a thief," one officer said, standing back to survey the man on the floor. As they let him out, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that nestled deep within me. I had thought I was safe in my quiet town, but now I knew that danger lurked just beyond the surface, ready to strike when you least expected it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump, and I kept replaying the events in my head. The Johnsons returned on Sunday evening, full of apologies and gratitude, but I could see the guilt in their eyes. They never thought something like this could happen in our neighborhood.
When I turned 16, my parents finally trusted me to stay home alone for the night. We lived in a quiet neighborhood where the streets were lined with tall trees, and the neighbors often waved as they passed by. It felt safe, a place where I could play outside with my friends without a worry in the world. That night, my parents went out for dinner, and I was thrilled at the thought of having the entire house to myself. I planned to order pizza and dive into my favorite video games, ready for an adventure in my own way. After playing for a while, I decided to order a pizza from Benny's, my favorite local pizzeria. I dialed the number and quickly placed my order. "I'll take a large pepperoni, please." The voice on the other end sounded cheerful. "Coming right up," the man said. I hung up and went back to my game, feeling a sense of freedom wash over me. A while later, the doorbell rang. I jumped up, eager for my pizza. I opened the door and was greeted by a strange sight. The delivery guy stood in front of me, looking disheveled. His beard was unkempt, and his clothes were stained. He wore a baseball cap that seemed too big for him, casting shadows over his face. "Your pizza," he said, handing me the box. "Thanks," I replied, trying not to stare. As I counted out the cash, he suddenly looked up at me, his eyes wide and intense. "You alone here, kid?" A shiver ran down my spine. I hesitated, my heart racing. "My parents are on their way back," I lied, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. "Good to know," he said, smirking as he handed me the pizza. I quickly closed the door, locking it and leaning against it, feeling uneasy. I set the pizza on the kitchen table and took a slice, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. But as I chewed, I couldn't stop thinking about the delivery guy. Did he really need to know if I was home alone? Just as I was about to dive back into my game, the doorbell rang again, sending my heart racing. I peeked through the peephole and saw the pizza guy at the door. I stood frozen, unsure whether I should answer. "Hey, kid, I need help," a voice called from the other side of the door. "I think I've hurt myself. Please, let me in." Fear gripped me. I glanced at the peephole, but didn't see anything. "Who is this?" I shouted back, my voice shaky. "It's me, the pizza guy. I need to use your phone." My instinct screamed at me to stay quiet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and dialed my mom's number. "Mom, there's someone at the door." "Who is it?" she asked, her voice tense with concern. "It's the pizza guy. He says he's hurt and wants to come in." "Don't let him in. Tell him to call 911 for help. Stay where you are and lock the door. I'm calling the police." I quickly ran to my parents' room and locked the door behind me. I crouched under the bed, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear him moving around downstairs, banging on the walls, scratching at the windows, and my breath quickened with fear. "Come on, kid. I know you're in there. Just let me in," he shouted, his voice growing more desperate. I pressed my hands over my ears, trying to block him out. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. My heart dropped. He was breaking into the house. I crawled further under the bed, tears streaming down my face, praying for help. Moments later, I heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. They were getting closer. "Let me in. I just want to talk." The door rattled as he twisted the knob, testing the lock. "You really think that little lock is going to keep me out? You're just a kid." Just then, I heard a loud bang. Someone was at the front door. A voice boomed, "Police, open up." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived as I heard the man shout in anger, "You can't keep me away." Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open. I looked up to see the police flood into the room. "Get down," an officer shouted, aiming his weapon at the man. In that instant, everything turned chaotic. The man lunged at the officer, and I heard gunshots ring out. My heart raced as I pressed myself against the wall, terrified. As I peeked out, I saw the man lying on the ground, blood pouring from his wounds. The officers rushed to him, but I couldn't look away. The scene was horrific, shocking, and surreal. "Is he dead?" I whispered, barely able to speak. The officer looked at me, his face serious. "Stay back, kid. We'll take care of this." As the chaos settled, I sat on the floor, shaking. I couldn't believe what had just happened. The nightmare felt unreal, like something out of a horror movie. Eventually, my parents rushed in, their faces pale with fear. They hugged me tightly, relief and panic flooding their eyes. "Are you okay?" my mom asked, her voice trembling. I'm fine," I stuttered, still in shock. They led me out of the room, and I glanced back at the man on the floor, surrounded by officers. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something darker. In the days that followed, I couldn't sleep. The image of that man haunted me. I learned that he had a long history of violence, and I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if the police hadn't arrived in time. I never felt safe in my home again. The walls that once felt comforting now felt like they were closing in on me. I could still hear his voice echoing in my mind. "You thought you could hide from me?" And even now, as I sit in my room, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching, waiting for the next chance to strike.